Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shay Invidiata. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multi-facet impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. Today's guest is a story of overcoming, something I love talking about. And really, what can happen when we choose to believe life is happening for us rather than to us, and that it is actually possible to turn your pain into purpose. Kathleen Black is a globally recognized high-performance mindset and performance expert, best-selling author, and renowned transformational speaker. Her unique holistic approach to empowered leadership and genius mindset training has guided iconic brands and high net worth professionals to add billions of additional dollars in sales volume annually. Kathleen's remarkable achievements have earned her numerous accolades, including the iconic Leaders Creating a Better World for All award. And she is the two-time best-selling author of The Top 1% Life and Relentless to Rise. Her life story inspired the Emmy-nominated documentary, The Relentless One. Today, Kathleen lives in Oshawa, Canada, with her two independent, free-spirited children, Ethan and Ella. And she's on the Freedom CEO podcast today to bring so much value around overcoming, becoming a high performer, and how no matter where you are on your journey in life, you are capable to do this as well. You're going to love it. So I get the pleasure of welcoming Kathleen Black onto the Freedom CEO podcast today. I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, we were talking offline how we had to reschedule this a few times, and I always feel like there's a reason somebody needs to tune in and hear this. And so we are finally sitting down today to have a powerful conversation. And before our initial one, actually, I hadn't met you. So now I've had the pleasure to meet you in person briefly, which is also nice. And I'll be honest, like for years, okay, obviously me being in real estate, your background is also in real estate, and we're going to obviously go into some of the transition in your own business journey. But I had no clue why. And if you've heard Kathleen Black's name before, you may have heard her being known as the Relentless One. So Kathleen, I really had no idea. I had no idea your background. I did not know your story. And it wasn't until, you know, I have a lot of respect for who you are as a business leader in the industry. And I was like, of course, I want to have you on, talk about high performance. And so I would love for you to share some of your journey, because I believe, you know, that your story has become the catalyst for who you are today and making a decision that you could have. I always say in life, you either become bitter or you become better. And in a massive way, you chose a better path. So for those that maybe don't know your story and why you've been knighted as the Relentless One, let's start there.
Yeah, and I'm always, it's so hard because I need a quick version. But when we started to prepare for the documentary, The Relentless One, we tried to do kind of the hero's journey. And some of you watching would be familiar with that, kind of like the difficulties we go through that allow us to push, some of us to push through, and the wisdom that we find. It's our hero's journey. And I said, hey, I'm like a cat, 9 lives. So I think a few things. I mean, like a lot of people listening, a lot of us come from homes that have instability. I certainly did. Like I always say, I didn't come from a home of, entrepreneurs, definitely at a home of service. Like a lot of my family are in the fire department, and connected to that, but there was a lot of abuse in my household. It was very difficult, so I left home young, and I had a lot of difficulties, being misunderstood, but also being in a really in like lacking stability in my environment. And looking back, I think, going through difficulty, you start to get used to how to operate under tension, and you start to learn how to leverage it. And, when I was 16 years old, I had knock on the door, police officer, and I ended up to actually be arrested for truancy, and they took me for psychological evaluation. And I say to people, now I talk about it and I look back and I always say, to me, it's just my life. This was just part of my life. There was a lot going on, and it wasn't uncommon for the police to be coming to my house. But looking back now, like I have she's almost 18-year-old daughter, and the idea of thinking of, a police officer knocking at the door, she's home alone, being arrested, taken to the hospital for psychological evaluation. I mean, kept there for a couple of days. I mean, that is terrifying to me. But for me at the time, it was like stiff upper lip and I'm fine. What's going to happen here? And I remember the day a couple of days in where I waited, the doctor comes in, sits down, opens his notebook, and I waited, and I looked at him and I said, listen, like, do you have the legal right to hold me here anymore? Like, what is going on? And he's like, Kathleen, like, no, like mentally you're fine, but you're in a very strained situation. And that's causing you to have, like, we don't even know how you're functioning with that because it's so difficult. And that's when he said to me, you can leave, but you have nowhere to go. You have no resources. Things are going to get worse for you, or you can choose to stay and get some support. And looking back, then I didn't know it, but now I know, like, that was my first moment in a big storm, and saying, hey, like, I'm going to do what's hard now so that I can walk out of this better, because being completely homeless was not something I wanted to do. I was already struggling to find places to sleep multiple nights and kicked out all the time. And in the end, I was actually arrested for truancy, which for anybody watching this, that's missing a lot of school. But I was an honor student. So I always make a joke that, like, it's the plight of entrepreneurs, right? We're just misunderstood. To me, I was like, why didn't they put me on stage and teach how to get on honor roll by attending half the time? But they certainly did not. And, I went home for a short period of time, and then I ended up to leave and live with a friend. And I got myself to university and thought, brand new life, I've escaped, everything will be better. And October 4th, middle of the night, I got a call my father had passed. So I just I feel in my life, we gravitate around trauma and pain and chaos until we really learn how to choose ourselves. And for me, I had to learn, hey, like, you don't choose yourself once, like, you choose yourself again and again and again. And when you finally really resolve, which I did later when I got pregnant with my son, when I went back to university, that's when I resolved, like, yeah, no, like, I'm ready to, heal and move away from these things. And there's a lot more. I always tell people I wish it got easier, but it didn't. The old saying, I got stronger and more clear, is very, very true. But I mean, life doesn't stop throwing us hurdles. Like, in the last few years, I've had many, many hurdles, right? But I think now I know that, all things pass. So now I think the reason I help people shift is because I've had to do it so many times. So it's kind of like everything. Your wound is your wisdom, right?
Yes. And okay, so do you have a moment, or do you recall, a period of time where you made a decision that you were going to turn your pain into purpose, that not allowing your circumstance to define you, but that you could be in control and really change the trajectory outside of what the system was telling you could be, you were going to be? Do you recall like a moment like that for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when I went back, I took a year off after I completed the year in university, but I took a year off. I went back, and then I found out I was unexpectedly pregnant. I was in a meaningful relationship, but certainly he wasn't anticipating being a father. And I remember going and looking at places to stay, and there was a townhouse. I went upstairs, I opened the closet. It was a cute little room. I thought, oh, this could be a nursery. And there were little hangers, and there were still children's and babies' clothes on the hanger because the people had been evicted. And at the time, time they didn't clear the houses all the time yet, right? Which is something they do more now, but then it wasn't uncommon that there'd be things in a rental or in a house. And I remember like just the tears, and my sister was came and stood beside me and saw it. And that was, I think, a big moment of, I'm going to give my child what I didn't have. Like, I'm going to make sure they have stability, and I'm going to use this to power me and use it to get a bit angry. You know, at times as a woman, I've been friggin' angry. I've been like, you got to be kidding me. Like trying to go through a court system, or as a coach in the real estate industry, or many times, you know, I've felt, hey, this is unfair. But instead of using anger just to be angry, I've used it to either speak up or to make changes. So I think for sure, you know, I got into real estate because I got married, we were building investment properties, and I was newly licensed, and we had the start of a separation, and I was terrified. Like, I was really like, do I go right and go manage dental offices, have the same hours as my kids, like have stability, but the future isn't so great? Or do I go left and like lean all the way into this competitive, difficult, like 24/7 career? But hey, I have the chance to navigate my path and protect my kids and have a say and be able to hire a lawyer if I need to in life, which, hey, sometimes we need to, right? So that was the start. And that first year I sold 44 homes in real estate with two kids under 5. So like that was one. And then when I left my prior coaching company, I ran the first team specific coaching company in real estate. There was a point where I go into the office, like the doors are locked, and I had to make, again, some hard choices. I mean, I think I've been bet against, as most women would, can relate to, men too. But I think as a single woman, single mother, it's easier to bet against people. And I had to kind of stand up for myself. And I used that energy to start the business that I have now. So absolutely. I think anytime I go through something most difficult, in the past couple of years, I went through something personal that was highly traumatic for me. And I had to go into intense healing. Like, I thought I knew healing. I didn't know healing. Like, I was like with shaman and multiple energy workers, and like I did my work. And the only way that I could make it all worthwhile was to alchemize it into something positive and powerful. Like, if the dark was 10 ergs of energy, I needed a million ergs of positive energy, because then it's worth it, right? So yeah, I think it's the most powerful way to transform things, for sure.
So let me ask you this, because I think even using like a kitschy phrase, like turning your pain into purpose, sometimes I feel like it loses people. Like, they'll hear the story and they're like, yeah, but it was easier for you, or you had maybe the tools.
Sure.
And, you know, and obviously as you grow and evolve, you know, better tools to put into what I call like your life box and how to apply them. But for somebody who is going through like something extremely hard, similar to maybe what you went through, as opposed to, and it's not to say to belittle or to minimize other people's pain or what they're going through. But when you think of like a magnitude similar to like what you've gone to versus maybe somebody who's like lost their job, has lost their way, you know, this is really heavy hitting. What advice like would you give to somebody of how to just start making these progressions towards actually turning your pain into purpose?
Yeah, and it's such a powerful question, because I think, first of all, I mean, tension is our most powerful chance to make a change. Like, it really is. I always say, like, tension is our calling card. And if we're in tension and we're leaning out, like right now, you know, in the real estate industry, there's a lot of tension, and there's a lot of people are really fearful. They're really scared. And unfortunately, instead of leaning in and doing more of what we need to do to create positive momentum, their fear is causing them to lean out. So the first thing I always work with is, you know, aligning our consciousness, right? Our conscious mind and our unconscious or subconscious, depending what you believe. So we do deep vision work. Like, I know for me, when things were really tough and I was like, you know, I did lose my job, lose my company, and most of my friends were connected with it. And I remember like Christmas Day being like, you're alone, like just sobbing and like, what am I going to do? But from that place was where I did the deep vision work. And not affirmations loosely, but affirmations that guided me. So anytime I felt scared, or I felt unsure, like there were days where I would say being affirmations probably 100 times because it was the only thing that would calm my anxiety and my fear. And I knew the minute I got fearful, my brain is going to go like this. I'm not going to take action. So it was like I had to be so committed to living in the future and that vision that even if everything around me was dark, it was like, no, I know where I'm going. So I'm making my decisions and taking action based on where I'm building, which is the biggest, most powerful thing you can do in shift, right? And it's not that I'm denying what is, I'm acknowledging it, but I'm making choices to get me to a new place. And most people, even entrepreneurs, the majority of entrepreneurs, the biggest thing we fight is that work of what type of life do we want to have, and then build the business, build the vehicles to give you it. We just build these things and we get trapped and we're like, well, now I built it, like I have to keep it. So I think the same principles apply when you're in a really tough situation, or when you're building your business. Like really envision it the way you want it and make the small micro choices to get there. I know some people have said, like I've talked with leaders in women's shelters, and they're like, well, it's hard because we find until we can get people to a place of more security and stability, they can't start to do that vision work, or they can't make those choices. And it was hard because honestly, when I look back on my life, if I didn't make those choices during the toughest time where I didn't have anybody but myself, like I don't know where it would have ended up. Like we are our first resource, right? With our energy and our vision, for sure.
Okay, so let me ask you, because you've said like vision a few times in this, and I really like, especially on here, to give people practical, that tangible tools. So yeah, and so for you, and we're all different, and so even like it's always nice to have these kind of conversations on a practical level. When you were crafting your vision, are you visualizing that meditation? Are you journaling? Do you have a vision board? Is that on the wall? Is it on your screensaver? Like what works for you in that way?
Yeah, something that I do, and I do this for years now. It's part of our community with our coaches as well. It's actually our first pillar is always vision. So the way that we do it, I thought I do have a pen. So we do pen to paper. So I do something called a letter from the future, and it's the first pillar in our inside out method. And inside out is how we learn to, set our frequency, our confidence, our clarity in ourselves, so we're not as susceptible to what's going on the outside. I mean, it's always there, but we want to have our set points. I always say I can't rely on the news to give me a good day. You know what I mean? I have to start on my own, right? So pen to paper, like if I was doing it today, I'd write October 5th, 2024. And I've done like 5 new client consults this week. We've been busy, and every single one ends with this, just to clarify like how important it is for us. So I'd write October 5th, 2024. And then we write a letter encompassing everything that's already come to pass that 1 year ahead back. So it's not writing, I wish this would happen. It's not, my goal is to earn X amount of money. It's not that. It's an embodiment, a right brain creative exercise, because we're so programmed all the time, like in our left brain, and what we should do, and the analytics, and, especially in business, like you need to make this and convert this. And that stuff's important, but it gets us out of tune with ourselves sometimes. The start is us. We're the fuel, right? You can build the most beautiful engine, but if you're not empowered, you're not going to fuel it. So the letter is literally embodying everything that's going to come to pass over that year in our personal relationships, our health, our energy, spirituality or religion, if that's important for you, business dynamics. And I always encourage people to include, like, if you're going to have a tough conversation, or you're going to have to try to set some boundaries that might shift a relationship, or maybe you have to move, you're not in the right environment for you. Like, hey, envision those obstacles and how you overcame them, because that's what gets people off their game. They're like, I didn't anticipate it would cost this much, right? And they kind of get pushed out of it. So we start there, and then we're really disciplined to go into our deep values, like our actual values, not what we want them to be. And then from there, we have the discipline. I always say the discipline work, because the start is the fun work, the discipline work to write the goals based on the vision and actually allow ourselves to be in tune. So there's more to it, but like, that's a really practical step by step. So I've been doing that well over 10 years now. And in my harder years, like I always say, if I'm having a really hard year, I'll do a new letter to anchor myself. If I'm having a really good year, I'll do a new letter to reach a little bit higher. But it's like I always have that anchor that I'm kind of course correcting through. And I think when you start doing it annually, it's like in the morning, you start feeling like, well, how do I want to feel today? How do I want to make other people feel today? You know, how do I envision this rolling out? Like it starts to influence everything you do, because the most powerful thing we can, I think, support in leaders is this idea of creation, right? We have this ability to influence and create change and shift leadership. And I'm like all about that. So if I can help people see how powerful they can be, you know, 1 year later, they might be like, wow, 50% of my letter came true. That's kind of weird. Like, you know, uncanny. I'll try it again. The second year, it's like 60%. The third year, they're like, okay, no, I have reverence. Like I'm like 70%. I didn't realize like how the ability I had to do this, which is just, you know, such a precious thing to witness.
And do you guide or like advise, like, how often are you revisiting that letter that you've written?
Great question. So most of our clients seal them in an envelope. Some of the teams will like put them together, and then a year later, we always write a new one first. And always write a new one first, because we're so hard on ourselves. Like I would say, write the new one first and then open the new one, then do personal inventory, right? We learn. But with our flow, because we take it, then we do values, then we do goals, we do perfect week, we do momentum makers, we do all the numbers, all the things, we do all of it, the left, the right brain, dual hemisphere, right? So because we've mapped it, we leave them sealed. Like I do them in the same journal. I usually do it around New Year's, and I have them all. I don't have to seal them, because for me, I look the next year because I've already charted them into my goal setting and they're on my calendar, like they're top of mind. Some years I do a vision board, but the work that we've studied and tested, I find the letter for me and our community, it's a more powerful alignment, because you're in it, you're feeling it, you're envisioning it, which is a special thing for people.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Because like I said, you know, I think it's really powerful for people to go, okay, that all sounds great, but like, what can I do myself right now? So earlier you had talked about removing yourself from the chaos and choosing yourself over and over again, which I really, really love hearing you say that. And I especially think even as realtors, as agents, one thing like I've always shared with like our team is the power of saying no, and that you need to be saying yes to yourself, right? And that you are your first and most important client, as selfish and counterintuitive as that might sound. And so hearing you say that, you know, makes me think about, yes, like all of this like chaos that can be around us. And I think some people are very much addicted to that, or like they have found comfort in the chaos. I think probably a couple of months ago, I saw you talking about shift, like this journey, right? From the chaos to calm. I'd love to unpack that a little more with you.
Yeah, that's my biggest passion project, which is funny because I mean I get paid to speak. So like it's not that, but it's a passion project. Like for me, it's a mission and it's a movement, this idea of shift, because I believe, and a lot of people do, but I believe that we're in such a important time of shift as a planet, you know, in leadership and in the land and thinking. So many things are shifting right now. And, you know, being a woman in the industry, there's a couple of reasons I had the goal to take that talk main stage. So it's a main stage keynote, you know, it's done with AV. So I've done it in Miami and Las Vegas and big stages, which I absolutely loved. Like it was just a thrill to do. But there's a couple of reasons it was a goal for me. I think, you know, there's not enough holistic in the industry, and we're holistic beings. And it's hard to know how our ego impacts our leadership, and it impacts how we lead with buyers and sellers, and how we lead with our teams or our brokerages, or, you know, any business, any organization, in our schools. So I really wanted to have something that took all this 15 years of work, you know, with leaders and scaling, as well as all my energy work and mindset work and all of these things that I love. I'm like, how can I integrate it all and have a journey that people can meet me where they're at, they can identify it, and they can self-coach. So it's literally shifting us out of our small mind into our consciousness and into powerful collectives. And I wanted to do that because I believe in that work. It changed my life. If I didn't shift into a different way of thinking, I don't even know what my life would look like. That's just the honest truth, let alone my parenting or my business. It probably wouldn't be pretty. We'll just put it that way. That, and I also am a big advocate for different voices on our stages, because I find we attract the same voices in a different body and the same energy. And some of the times that's really good. And some of the times it's not, some of the times it's perpetuating things that I find to be toxic that impact our clients and our families and our communities. So for me, I was like, as a woman, I want to advocate for not just myself, but other women and Black and Indigenous people of color to have spaces where we're influencing how we think about things and how we see the future, instead of, just breakout rooms or what they call light, like fluffy topics, whether they are or not, they're pigeonholed that way. So it's like, no, it's time. Like, we need that different voice and representation. So it's such a joy for me because we've had amazing feedback, and I invested a ton of time and money into upping my game. So I don't want anyone here and be like, oh, I just decided, like I'm going to be a main stage headlining keynote now, which I did in my letter. But then I did the work. I was like, I need the best coach I can find. I need someone who's going to challenge me. And man, they did. Like, it's humbling to be a speaker all those years and have my speaking coach be like, yeah, okay, it's not good enough. And I'm like, okay, like let's do the work, right? Yeah.
And okay, so like when you think of business, right, and really actually making this shift, a lot of people believe that in order to obtain that success, that means life does get more complex, crazy, chaos, less time. And there's an element of truth to all of that. And then there are tools and systems, obviously, that we can apply. But I think when we look at regulating the nervous system and also reframing the narrative that success doesn't need to be stressful, chaotic, like all of the things. Would you is that kind of part of your messaging around this shift when you think of like success to calm?
Absolutely. And I hope you'll be able to be at one of the keynotes so I can get your thoughts after. But yeah, that's a big part of it. Like, moving from ego and being like, hey, am I the overbearing leader? Am I the absentee leader? And this is as a parent, as a business, whatnot. But then shifting into, okay, in consciousness, I don't need to have all the answers to everything. I'm okay that I'm really bad at some things. And I always say it's like when you're traveling for a couple of days and you're going to a big destination, and, I have the audience do it. I'm like, okay, you get in there, you got your bags, you put them down. It's like, right. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, do the sigh. And like, you just activated your parasympathetic nervous system. Like, that's how consciousness feels. Like, it feels good because all of a sudden we're aware, oh, wait, there's so many different ways to think and feel. And I have more control over that than I think. And I can do all this breath work and visualization and all of these things. And I love integrating them from the stage because people are like, wow, I feel different. I'm like, I know, like, that's the power of, like you said, like regulating the nervous system and calming down. And we have ability to be better leaders. It's not an option. We are better. I fully believe we are better leaders from that space. We're more aware. We make better decisions. We're more strategic. We're more thoughtful, vulnerable, empathetic. And I think it's really important that we're not scared that that level of leadership might pull us back. I think the truth, I believe, is that those conscious leaders come together to make the most powerful collectives. Teams aren't where you have underlings. Teams, when they work, are when you have people who are leaders in all facets in their right gifts. So I think it's true that no matter what, we're always going to be going like this, right? So you're going to grow, or some might see it this way, like you're going to grow and hit a ceiling and go, shoot, I'm in chaos. Well, what's it telling me? What do I need to shift now? Oh, I'm just shifting higher, versus people get so scared of, I reach for something, I hit tension, this is bad for me, it's stress. And I'm like, well, if it's you stress because you want it, it's actually not bad. It's a call to growth. So what type of changes can we make so you can still get there? So yeah, I think it's all interconnected. Yeah. But if we sell out our health or our happiness for money, I mean, I don't know. That's not what I signed up for,
Totally. And at the end of the day, like that actually doesn't buy you the happiness.
No.
Right. And so like one of the things like I have been introducing into my own business and my own life, probably over the last like 6 months, but like really being intentional about it, is that business gets to be successful and fun, like literally fun. Never mind like the ease and flow and like regulating the nervous system, like yes, like all of those things. But I just got like more clear for me personally on like even what does that mean, you know? Because like if you're not having fun, because you can be happy, but still not actually be having fun, right? But like when we get to play in this realm with business and leveling up our lives and high performance, like it actually does get to be fun, you know? And that helps to just like calm the nervous system. Like one of my, I've got so many different like health people like in my life, you know, that I go to. I've got a guy for everything. And it's still like your adrenals are shot, like stress still. And I'm like, I moved to Costa Rica. I've been there for like 2 years. Like, how much more chill can I get? You know? And so that's something just even for me personally that I'm trying to now take that even to the next level for me of going, success gets to be ease and flow, but it also gets to be a ton of fun. And like, how fun can it get? And what does that look like when we bring that into business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is an area I didn't do well in, and I still have, because we all have strengths and weaknesses. And I remember how it was a long time ago now, like maybe even over 10 years, but I was training a set of agents coming onto a big team, like doing onboarding for their mindset and training, blah, blah, blah. But I remember them saying, oh, yeah, like I went and did market education. And we're like, okay, let's talk about the benefits. And the agent's like, it's fun. Like, why would I want to do it? It's fun. I'm like, fun. Like nobody has ever said this, because I think for so long I had to hustle. I told myself I had to hustle and grind, and I was a single mom, and I was like desperate to get some stability, right? So I was willing to do that. But then I'm the first one to admit, and I tell my community, I'm like, I made a mistake. Like I waited way too long to give myself permission to be like, yeah, you know what? You get to choose what you enjoy. I more was like, I'm good at this. The world needs this. I need to do this. But it wasn't, well, wait, like, how do I feel? So I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think some of us struggle more with that. Maybe our personalities, or it's our growth journey. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, okay. So let me like pivot a little bit, because I think right now, and we have talked about this, and it's not a shock to anybody, right? Like the world is constantly, you mentioned the word shifting. It is changing. We're navigating new waters, new territories. For some people, it's new industries, like completely, or moving from being an employee to finding themselves like in waters of going, that entrepreneurial thing that y'all do over there, like, I think I need to do that, or at least I need to like layer in another revenue stream of income so that I'm not solely relying on something that has been really unstable or uncertain over the past couple of years. And I think one of the biggest things for a lot of people is trying to figure out, how do I create opportunities for myself and really like advocate, believe for myself? And then there's this voice of imposter syndrome that comes up. And those two meet each other. And that fear, which is really your safety receptors going off, trying to protect you, right? That goes, oh, no, that's a little scary. And we take that step back.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that and advising that for people when like you're in uncharted territory meeting imposter syndrome?
Yeah. I mean, I think I really love first acknowledging like there are imposters, right? I'm talking like there are imposters, there are real imposters. And I think it's good to remember that, because the people who are imposters are not worrying about being imposters. They think they're entitled to whatever, right? So they're never saying it. So if you're having imposter syndrome, you're listening to this first, personal introspection is really, really healthy. Like as a human saying, hey, like, do I have enough skills, or am I ready for this? Or what do I need to invest in? That's a really healthy awareness that is showing that, hey, you're a good person, right? To enter into being of service to others. Because if you're not worried about actually having the accreditation or the service or the ability to help people, and you're just like, oh, I'm going to put up that I'm, a coach, or I'm a award winning anything, and you don't have it, that's really dangerous. And that happens a lot over the last couple of years, for sure. Luckily, a lot of people are not that, so don't hear it that way. But I think starting there, well, hey, where is this coming from? Like, is this an actual like reality that I need to invest in some expertise or some aptitude? Could I work with somebody or mentorship? If it's not that, and you're clear, because we know, unfortunately, there's a correlation between experience and confidence that works really weird. The higher your experience and expertise, actually, the more people tend to have imposter syndrome, which makes absolutely no sense. So it's
Sure.
basically like, again, the more you know anything, you know all these nuances. So you are more careful because you know how everything dives in. So sometimes when we're new, we're just running for it. So I would say to start just analyzing that. But the second thing I would say is be really clear on how you can bring value. You know, money is a value exchange. So often if we're having trouble, you know, with a new plight or making money in any industry, it's like, are you making it difficult for people to see your value? Do you not trust your value? Do you need to brainstorm some of the ways that you truly help people, like in a real way? Because I find if we can say, hey, if I can offer more contribution, what's that worth to the people I'm trying to serve? And we're deep in that knowing, it's a lot easier to confidently go, because you're not trying to just make money, you're trying to help people, but making sure you have a structure in place. So I don't know if I answered your question. I went all over the place because I think it's a big process, honestly. I don't think it's an overnight thing. I think it's like every day taking action. So you build your momentum, you build your confidence, and then tweaking and staying the path is a big part of it too.
Well, and I mean, I think it was fantastic what you said. And to add to that, I think layering in even your vision tool of writing that letter to your future self, and then anchoring in and allowing that to really hold ground for you, because eventually if you are taking action and aligned action to whatever your future self is, what you focus on grows, and then what you focus on also like expands, and the energy follows that. So at some point they meet up, right? Yeah. If you're taking the action. So I definitely, I thought it was fantastic. And I think that would be a really powerful tool for somebody starting out with something, that anytime that you're feeling like that imposter syndrome, like anchor back into your letter. Like you might have to open up the envelope. I know you said you seal them, but maybe like open up the envelope and re-anchor into the vision that you're holding for yourself, you know, and that you are worthy, you are capable, and all is available to you as well. So
yeah, for sure. And writing sometimes a being goal, right? Instead of an achieving goal, a being goal. You know, who do I want to be every day, and how do I want to feel? And, you know, people call me all the time, and, you know, we both know the real estate industry, and I'll have somebody say, okay, you know, I've decided I'm going to build a team that's a 500 deal a year, 1,000 deal a year. And like, it doesn't matter where they're at. They're nowhere near. That's fine. But then when you say, okay, cool, like, why do you want to do that? You know, why do you want to have a team? What are you willing to do to get there? And they're like, no, like, I just want to follow the system, and we're going to have, but when it comes down and we break down who do they want to be on a daily basis, most of them don't want to be the person who's going to do the things daily that are going to get them to that summit. And I think that's part of, sometimes when I feel imposter, sometimes I double check as well. Is this in alignment with how I want to live and who I want to be? Or am I just seeing the shiny thing at the end of the course, right? And I really find if you pick the things that you want to do anyway, and you love, like I always say, I love the journey. Like I love the walk. I love hiking. I love pilgrimaging. Like I love that. So for me, it's not about reaching. It's literally like enjoying that becoming. So when you get stuck, it's like, well, I'm a person of influence and a person of character, and I make right decisions. I follow my habits and I stay in alignment. Like it could be whatever it is for you, but those are really powerful day to day, because you can realign and be like, oh, wait a minute. The me in 1 year who's achieved that letter, they would show up and be brave and do this today. They would. So I'm going to align and give that a try. So I think we said the same thing, but yeah, it's a really cool becoming process, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure you know this, the quote, I don't know who says it, but in it, like to paraphrase it, sometimes it's actually also about unbecoming, right? In order to just actually be, and then rebuilding to become. But sometimes we just need to actually unbecome and take off everything that's the opinions of others and weighing us down, and the expectations of what people think we're supposed to be doing, or how we've been brought up to be. And so sometimes that's part of the journey as well, is to unbecome.
Absolutely. Huge part. Yes. So much so.
So, okay, let me ask you, business, entrepreneur, and we're in this crazy world right now where things are changing rapidly. What are you doing with AI? What's your thoughts on AI and weaving it into business right now?
I'm trying to be as intentional as I can with AI because it's just mind blowing. Like I just got back from Los Angeles for a big conference, and they had people coming in with the latest of what they're testing in AI. And some of these companies have been testing it for like 3 years in house. So, I mean, I got to listen to real calls of AI making calls out to consumers, right? And asking questions and adjusting and using language patterns and communication styles that we work with, and hearing them say the AI is actually better because they'll stick to the system. Whereas as humans, right, we adapt and we make changes. So yeah, it was pretty interesting, and like hearing the stats and why and all of this great stuff. So as always, there's the human element that trips us up sometimes, but we are using AI. I'm trying to make sure it's not a shiny object syndrome. Like I think it's very easy to get lost in the AI rabbit hole. So I'm investing in workshops and things, and we'll bring what's tactical. Like when we have our conference or our workshops, we want to be like, here's a direct way you can use this. And here's how you want to be careful, because not everybody wants to be an AI specialist. Like even me, we use it a lot now for editing, refining things. Like we've gotten very good at creating avatars for different things in our business. And if you're watching this, you haven't done that, it's an incredible way to learn how to speak directly to people's needs. But even at that, sometimes we'll adjust back because we lose the human element a little bit. But I think we need to lean into it. I mean, what the capabilities are with AI, or those of us who run events, I can be like, set me the timeline for this many breaks and this many sessions and this many breakouts, and here's what I want. And it'll give me the structure in 10 seconds that would have taken me, I don't know, 45 minutes, maybe an hour if I tweak with it. Like that time's worth a lot.
Totally. It is. And that's why I'm always so curious as to like how people are using it. And it's finding that dance between, it can help elevate what you're doing in your business and bring efficiencies. But at the end of the day, we as the humans are still the most valuable component, and to not lose sight on that. But to dismiss it is like, well, you're going to be left in the dust in some way, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, as much as it fascinates us, and I think in business, we're like, imagine the possibility. Like, you imagine me sitting there being like, we support teams. Like, this could be their inside sales. This could be their agent until they meet for a presentation. And then I leave the conference just to say how reality reminds us, and go to get my rental car. And I've already had the text and the email, the car's waiting for you, all this stuff. And then the person calls me like, oh, we don't have any of your car. We don't have anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? I reserved this, whatever. Going like, you have to call this hotline. Sure enough, don't I call? It's an AI talking to me, and like I'm trying to give the number and it doesn't hear it. It's interrupting me, and I'm like, okay, thank you for the reminder. Thank you. Like when you're under pressure and something goes wrong, you want to talk to somebody you trust in real life. And I can't think of many more places other than a very serious courtroom than real estate, where you really want that, or your healthcare provider, or your naturopath. Like I want to talk to them.
Totally. I love it. Kathleen, you've got a really fantastic summit coming up in November, and who needs to be there? When and where is it? We will definitely be putting it in the show notes. So make sure you click wherever you're tuning in from, because if you haven't realized how amazing Kathleen is, you're going to want to be there. So tell us about what is happening at your summit.
Thank you. So November 8th to 10th, we will be coming together. This is the 15th year doing conferences, but we have a special year because we're leveling up. Again, the world's shifting and we want to shift. So this year it's Kathleen Black Summit. It used to be called Ultimate Team Summit, in case you've heard of it. And it's where we bring leaders, experts, we bring energy workers, we do vision work. And you're going to see, iconic brand leaders, team leaders. People come from any service or sales industry. It's definitely well attended by the real estate industry, 100%. But it's where we go to figure out, what do we need to know for the year ahead? How can we thrive, but also thrive, like you said, in that place of calm and confidence and clarity, and really lean into a community that's going to support us. So, I just got back from Esalen. Like, I'm a firm believer, like I invest in the healing and the resetting and the cleansing so I can be my best. And every year we bring back some of that energy for Summit. So I think if you want to know how to look at data, how to strategize, or you just want to go and get back in tune with yourself, it's an amazing experience to come out to. And there's a whole bunch of guest speakers that we're going to be releasing as well.
And is this Toronto GTA where?
Yeah, people come from all over Canada. We have people sometimes fly in, or usually we always have some people fly in from the US as well, but definitely well represented from across Canada. It is in Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. So anyone listening in US, usually they fly in US, Niagara or Buffalo, and drive over. It's super easy. But yeah, we're back in Niagara Falls. It's open to anybody looking to kind of be a better leader and get in tune with themselves. And the website is the KathleenBlackSummit.com if you're looking to look it up.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely put it in the show notes. I'm going to try to be there if I'm not out of the country. Yeah, I'd love to come. And in closing, I always ask everybody that comes on this question.
Okay.
When you think about being the CEO of your life, not of your business, but of your life, how has taking ownership over your decisions brought you freedom?
Oh my goodness. How is in every possible way. In Los Angeles, I was on a power leader panel and they asked me, when did you start becoming a leader? And my answer literally was when I started to take responsibility for my choices and myself. That's the day I became a leader, because that's the day I influenced my future. So literally, it's like going back to that young teenager, afraid, probably in that hospital. I didn't know I was doing it then, but I think that was the start of like, hey, I'm responsible, which gives me so much empowerment and allowed me to free myself from some harmful victim mentality that I had to let go of. That took a few years, but that was the start of it. Yeah.
So powerful. I love that. Kathleen, thank you for being here today. Really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shane Vidiata and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.